the breaking point. Captain Miranda Chin stood at the viewport of the transport shuttle, watching as the Galactic Council's diplomatic station grew larger against the backdrop of stars. The structure was massive, a testament to thousands of years of cooperation between dozens of alien species. Circular rings rotated slowly around a central hub, each section devoted to a different member civilization. Lights flickered across its surface like a city floating in the void. Miranda adjusted her uniform, the crisp blue fabric bearing the emblem of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. She had spent 3 years preparing for this assignment, learning alien customs, studying galactic law, and training in negotiation techniques. At 38 years old, she had been chosen from thousands of candidates to represent humanity's petition for council membership. The journey to this moment had been long. Humanity discovered faster-than-light travel only 40 years ago, stumbling upon the principles almost by accident during quantum computing experiments. Since then, humans had established colonies on 17 worlds and made contact with the Galactic Council. For most of that time, the Council had observed humanity from a distance, neither welcoming nor rejecting Earth's attempts at communication. 6 months ago, everything changed. The Council sent an official invitation for Earth to send a representative to discuss potential membership. President Marcus Webb had called it the greatest opportunity in human history. Miranda believed him. She believed that joining the Council would open doors to technology, knowledge, and partnerships that would transform human civilization. The shuttle docked with a gentle thud. Miranda gathered her data tablets and walked to the airlock. Her escort was already waiting on the other side, a tall creature with 4 arms and silver skin that reflected the station's lighting. It belonged to the Zethar species, known for their role as neutral mediators in Council affairs. Captain Chin, the Zethar said through its translation device. I am Mediator Kelvrax. The Council awaits your arrival in Chamber 7. Miranda followed Kelvrax through the station's corridors. The walls were lined with viewing screens showing different worlds, some covered in purple vegetation, others with crystal cities rising from methane seas. Aliens of various species walked past, some humanoid, others wildly different. A few glanced at Miranda with what might have been curiosity. Most ignored her entirely. They entered Chamber 7 through massive doors that slid open silently. The room beyond took Miranda's breath away. It was designed as an amphitheater with seats rising in tiers around a central floor. Delegates from 37 species occupied those seats, their forms ranging from insectoid to crystalline to creatures that seemed made of living light. At the highest tier sat the Council elders, representatives of the founding species. Miranda recognized them from her studies. The Varkesh, ancient beings encased in mechanical suits to preserve their failing biology. The Korath, massive creatures with tentacles that moved with deliberate grace. The Minari, small but technologically advanced, their large eyes capable of seeing wavelengths humans could not perceive. Captain Miranda Chin of Earth, a voice echoed through the chamber. It came from High Elder Torkin, a Varkesh whose mechanical voice carried the weight of authority. You stand before the Galactic Council to petition for your species' inclusion in our community. Miranda walked to the center of the floor. She had rehearsed this moment hundreds of times. Honored elders and esteemed delegates, humanity comes before you in peace and friendship. We seek to learn from your wisdom and contribute our own strengths to the prosperity of all council members. Your species is young, another voice interjected. This came from a Korath named Vrelnoth. You have known space travel for less than a human lifetime. You lack the stability and experience necessary for council membership. Miranda had expected this argument. With respect, Elder Vrelnoth, youth can be an advantage. Humanity brings fresh perspectives and innovative approaches to problem solving. Our scientists have made significant advances in quantum mechanics and artificial intelligence. We offer these discoveries freely to the Council. A murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. Kelvrax, standing near the entrance, shifted uncomfortably. High Elder Torkin raised a mechanical appendage and silence returned. Your technological advancement is precisely what concerns us, Captain Chin. In 40 years, your species has progressed at a rate that takes other civilizations centuries to achieve. You build warships alongside your colony vessels. You establish military installations while claiming peaceful intentions. You refuse to share the full specifications of your faster-than-light drives. The accusation hung in the air. Miranda felt her pulse quicken, but she kept her voice steady. We defend what is ours as any species must. The galaxy is vast and not all who travel it have peaceful intentions. Surely the Council understands the need for self-protection. We understand ambition disguised as caution, Vrelnoth said. We have seen species like yours before. They grow quickly, expand rapidly, and eventually threaten the order we have maintained for millennia. Miranda's diplomatic training urged caution, but she also heard the undercurrent in the elder's words. This was not a debate. It was a judgment already rendered. If the Council has concerns, we are willing to address them through dialogue and compromise. That is why I am here. High Elder Torkin leaned forward in his mechanical suit. You are here, Captain Chen, because we summoned you. Not to negotiate but to deliver a message. The chamber doors sealed shut with a sound like thunder. Miranda spun around, seeing guards materialize from alcoves she had not noticed. They carried weapons that hummed with contained energy. What is the meaning of this? Miranda demanded, her diplomatic composure cracking. I came here under protection of diplomatic protocols. Protocols that apply only to recognized civilizations, a new voice said. Elder Shivani of the Minari descended from her seat, floating on an anti-gravity platform. Her large eyes fixed on Miranda with something that might have been regret. Earth has not been recognized. Therefore you have no protections here. Miranda's hand moved to the emergency beacon on her belt, but an energy field surrounded her before she could activate it. Her arms locked to her sides, and the small device clattered to the floor. Humanity represents a threat to galactic stability, High Elder Torkin announced, his voice now addressing not just Miranda but being broadcast throughout the station. Your species advances too quickly. You refuse to submit to Council authority. You challenge the natural order that has preserved peace for thousands of years. Miranda struggled against the energy field, but it held her immobile. You cannot do this. Earth will respond. We will not accept this treatment. That is what we expect, Vrelnoth said. And that is why we must act now before your species grows strong enough to truly threaten us. Kelvrak stepped forward, and Miranda saw sorrow in the Zether's posture. I am sorry, Captain. I believed your species deserved a chance. I was overruled. The Council has voted, High Elder Torkin continued. Humanity is denied membership. Your expansion beyond your current territories is forbidden. And to ensure your species understands the consequences of defiance, we make this demonstration. A Korath guard approached Miranda, holding a device that crackled with violet energy. She understood then what was about to happen. This was not imprisonment or deportation. This was an execution. My name is Captain Miranda Chen, she said, her voice clear despite her fear. I am a citizen of Earth, a mother of 2 children, and an officer who served my world with honor. I came here seeking peace. If you do this, you prove that the Council fears what it cannot control. You prove that your age has made you weak. High Elder Torkin showed no emotion. Your courage is noted. It will not save you. The device activated. Miranda felt intense heat, then a moment of searing pain before everything went dark. Her body collapsed to the chamber floor. The Council delegates watched in silence. Some appeared satisfied. Others looked away. None objected. Technicians moved forward quickly, placing Miranda's remains in a sealed container. Transmit the recording to Earth, High Elder Torkin ordered. Let them see what awaits those who reach beyond their place. The execution had been recorded by dozens of cameras positioned throughout the chamber. Within minutes, the footage was being broadcast across every Council communication channel. It would reach Earth within hours. On Earth, deep beneath the capital city of Geneva, President Marcus Webb sat in the Crisis Management Center. Around him, military advisors and cabinet members monitored the live feed from the Council station. They had watched Miranda enter Chamber 7. They heard the accusations. They saw the energy field trap her. They watched Captain Miranda Chen die. The room fell into absolute silence. Even the constant hum of computer systems seemed to fade. Secretary of Defense Catherine Okonkwo closed her eyes, her hands gripping the edge of the table. General Thomas Hawthorne, a decorated veteran of the Mars Rebellion, stared at the screen with an expression carved from stone. Admiral Patricia Rourke, commander of Earth's Space Fleet, stood motionless, her jaw clenched so tight it looked painful. President Webb rose slowly from his chair. He walked to the main display screen, which now showed Miranda's image frozen in her final moment. She had been one of Earth's finest. A decorated officer, a brilliant diplomat, a woman who believed deeply in the possibility of peaceful coexistence. She had been murdered while under diplomatic protection, killed to send a message of fear. Marcus turned to face his cabinet. He looked at each person individually, seeing grief and rage reflected in their faces. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried absolute certainty. They killed our envoy. They murdered Captain Chin knowing we would see it, wanting us to see it, expecting us to retreat in fear back to our own system like terrified children. He paused, letting his words sink in. They believe we are weak. They believe we will submit to their judgment. They believe humanity will bow to their ancient power and accept whatever scraps they choose to offer. Catherine Okonkwo stood. Mr. President, what are your orders? Marcus walked to the communications console. His fingers moved across the controls, opening a channel to every military installation, every space station, every ship in the human fleet. His next words would be heard by millions of people across dozens of worlds. This is President Marcus Webb. Moments ago, the Galactic Council executed Captain Miranda Chin, our diplomatic envoy, without trial or justification. They killed her as a demonstration, a warning to humanity to know our place. He paused, his voice growing harder. They made a mistake. They confused our desire for peace with weakness. They mistook our diplomacy for submission. They forgot that humans have survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. They forgot that we crawled out of caves and reached for the stars through determination and refusal to accept limitations. General Hawthorne activated military protocols across the system. Lights flashed on dozens of control panels as hidden systems came online. Effective immediately, Earth is at war with the Galactic Council, Marcus continued. All civilian personnel in Council space are to evacuate immediately. All military units are to assume defensive postures and prepare for offensive operations. Every reserve unit is activated. Every weapon system is armed. Admiral Rourke pulled up fleet positions on the tactical display. Human ships began moving into formation throughout the solar system. The Council wanted to send a message, Marcus said, his voice now carrying across Earth and all human colonies. We will send one in return. They will learn that humanity does not bow. We do not submit. We do not forget. And we never, ever leave our people unavenged. The Crisis Management Center erupted into controlled activity. Orders flowed outward at the speed of light. On Mars, weapon platforms hidden in the asteroid belt powered up for the first time. On Luna, massive railgun emplacements emerged from underground bunkers. Throughout the solar system, human ships that had been designed for exploration and defense began preparations for war. In orbit around Jupiter, the carrier fleet led by Admiral Jackson Reeves received the activation codes. His ships had been conducting routine exercises. Now those exercises became real. His crew moved with practiced efficiency, loading weapons and checking systems. On Earth's surface, Commander Sofia Torres briefed her special operations teams. They had trained for years in hostile environment rescue operations. Now they would put that training to use extracting human civilians from Council-controlled stations. The machinery of human warfare, built over decades but never fully tested, began to turn. The Council had thrown down the gauntlet by executing Miranda Chin. Now humanity would show them the cost of that decision. President Webb stood before the display showing Earth surrounded by its defensive network. They wanted to frighten us into submission. Instead, they gave us absolute clarity. This is not about territory or resources or political power. This is about survival. About proving that humanity will not be bullied by those who fear our potential. He turned to his cabinet. Ready all forces. Prepare Operation Prometheus. The Council believes they can kill our people without consequence. We will teach them a lesson they will never forget. Across human space, millions of people heard the President's words. Fear mingled with determination. Grief transformed into resolve. The Galactic Council had wanted to demonstrate their power. They succeeded only in uniting humanity with a single purpose. Captain Miranda Chin had gone to the Council station seeking peace. She died believing in the possibility of cooperation between species. Her death would not be meaningless. It would be the spark that ignited humanity's refusal to accept subjugation. The war had begun. And the galaxy would soon learn that while humans preferred peace, they excelled at war. Humanity's answer. Operation Prometheus launched 72 hours after Captain Miranda Chin's execution. The name was chosen deliberately. Prometheus had stolen fire from the gods and given it to humanity. Now humanity would steal victory from an empire that believed itself divine. Admiral Jackson Reeves stood on the bridge of the carrier Washington, humanity's largest warship. Around him, his crew worked with focused intensity, their training taking over despite the enormity of what they were about to do. Jackson was 53 years old, a veteran of every major conflict humanity had fought in space. He had commanded patrol boats, destroyers, and now an entire battle group. But he had never commanded ships going into battle against an enemy this powerful. The tactical display showed the Washington and 19 other capital ships positioned at the edge of Council space. Their target was the Terminus Station, a major Council hub that controlled trade routes to 12 systems. Intelligence reports indicated approximately 40 human civilians worked there as cultural liaisons and technical consultants. Those people had no idea their own government had just declared war. Status report, Jackson ordered. Commander David Park, his executive officer, consulted the tactical screens. All ships report ready. Jump drives are charged. Weapon systems are hot. Fighter wings are prepared for immediate launch. Jackson studied the holographic representation of Terminus Station. It was defended by 8 Council warships, standard patrol strength for a facility of this importance. Under normal circumstances, those 8 ships would be more than enough to repel any threat. But these were not normal circumstances. Communications open a channel to the fleet, Jackson said. A moment later, the faces of his ship commanders appeared on screens around the bridge. He saw determination in their eyes but also fear. They were about to engage an enemy that had dominated this region of space for millennia. "We all know why we're here," Jackson began. "The Council murdered Captain Chin to frighten us. They wanted to show the galaxy what happens to species that challenge their authority. Instead, they showed us exactly who they are. Bullies. Tyrants hiding behind ancient treaties and superior numbers." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Today we show them something they've forgotten. We show them what happens when you push humans too far. We're not the biggest fleet in the galaxy. We're not the oldest or the most experienced. But we're the most determined. We're fighting for our people, our freedom, and our future. That makes us unstoppable." The commanders nodded, some with grim smiles. "Stick to the plan," Jackson continued. "Hit fast, hit hard, and get our people out. The Council expects us to fight by their rules. We won't. Use every advantage. Exploit every weakness. Make them regret ever hearing the name humanity." He closed the channel and turned to his crew. "All ships jump on my mark. 3, 1, the mark." The Washington and its escort ships vanished from normal space, entering the quantum tunnel of faster-than-light travel. The journey to Terminus Station would take 4 minutes. Jackson used that time to review the attack plan one final time. The Council fought wars like ancient armies, with formation and protocol. They arranged their ships in defensive patterns that maximized overlapping fields of fire. They followed engagement doctrines developed over thousands of years. Those doctrines assumed their enemies would fight similarly. Humans had no such assumptions. Human military doctrine was built on one principle: win by any means necessary. Jackson planned to exploit that difference. The fleet emerged from hyperspace directly on top of Terminus Station, far closer than the Council would consider safe. The enemy warships were caught completely off guard, their sensors having detected nothing until human ships materialized mere kilometers away. "All ships weapons free," Jackson commanded. The Washington's rail guns opened fire before the Council ships could raise their shields. Solid metal slugs, accelerated to enormous velocities, crossed the distance in less than a second. They punched through the hull of the nearest Council cruiser, penetrating deep into its interior before the kinetic energy exploded outward. The ship broke apart, spilling atmosphere and debris. Around the battlefield, the same scene repeated. Human ships firing at point-blank range, using their sudden appearance to devastating effect. 3 Council warships were destroyed or crippled in the first 30 seconds of combat. The remaining 5 ships finally responded, their captains overcoming shock to activate defensive systems. Energy shields flared to life. Weapon batteries rotated toward the human fleet. Counterfire erupted across the battlefield. "Evasive maneuvers," Jackson ordered calmly. "Don't let them establish targeting locks." The Washington rolled, presenting its armored dorsal surface to incoming fire while its ventral guns continued shooting. Human ships moved with agility that Council vessels could not match. They had been designed by engineers who understood that in space combat, maneuverability was survival. Commander Park monitored the tactical situation. 2 Council ships are trying to flank us. The others are moving to protect the station. "Launch fighter wings," Jackson said. "Target their engines and weapons. I want them crippled, not destroyed. We need prisoners who can tell us about Council military capabilities." The Washington's launch bays opened, releasing 60 fighters into the void. Each one was piloted by someone who had trained their entire adult life for this moment. They scattered across the battlefield like angry hornets, attacking with precision that the Council forces found impossible to counter. Lieutenant Marcus Webb Jr., son of Earth's president, led Alpha Squadron toward a Council destroyer. His fighter's sensors painted targeting solutions across his display. He selected the ship's main thruster assembly and fired a salvo of armor-piercing missiles. The missiles impacted in rapid succession, tearing through the destroyer's propulsion system. The ship lurched, its forward momentum carrying it into a slow tumble. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull as fuel lines ruptured and containment fields failed. Alpha Leader to Washington, Marcus reported. Target is disabled. Moving to next objective. Confirmed, Alpha Leader, came the response. Proceed. While the main battle raged, a single ship broke away from the human formation. This was the rescue vessel Mercy, commanded by Commander Sofia Torres. Her mission was different from the others. She was not here to fight. She was here to save lives. Sofia had spent 12 years in Earth Special Operations Command, leading missions behind enemy lines during the Mars Rebellion and the Titan Crisis. She was 37 years old, small in stature but fierce in determination. Her crew consisted of 40 operators, each one trained in hostile environment extraction. The Mercy approached Terminus Station from an angle obscured by the battle debris. Council sensors were focused on the main threat, not on a single ship moving quietly through the chaos. Docking Port 7 is undefended, her tactical officer reported. We can breach there. Do it, Sofia ordered. The Mercy's boarding tubes extended, magnetic clamps locking onto the station's hull. Shaped charges detonated, blowing open an access hatch. Sofia and her team poured through the breach, weapons ready. Inside the station they encountered panicked civilians and scattered security forces. The Council had not evacuated non-combatants, believing their defenses impregnable. Now aliens of a dozen species fled through corridors, seeking shelter from the battle happening outside. Sofia's team moved with practiced efficiency, following schematics of the station downloaded from Earth intelligence. They knew exactly where the human residential section was located. They also knew time was critical. The longer they remained, the more likely Council reinforcements would arrive. They reached the human quarter within 6 minutes. The door was sealed, locked down when the attack began. Sofia's demolition expert, Sergeant James Liu, placed a plasma cutter against the lock mechanism. 30 seconds, he said. Sofia positioned her team in a defensive perimeter. Behind them, the sounds of battle echoed through the station's superstructure. Metal groaned and alarms wailed. The Council had never experienced combat inside their own facilities. They had no protocols for this situation. The door burst open. Inside, 42 terrified humans pressed against the far wall. They were engineers, teachers, trade specialists who had come to Terminus Station seeking cultural exchange and professional opportunities. They looked at Sofia's armed team with a mixture of relief and confusion. I'm Commander Sofia Torres, Earth Special Operations, she announced. We're evacuating all human personnel immediately. Follow my team. Move quickly and stay quiet. A woman stepped forward. Her name tag identified her as Dr. Rachel Kim, a xenobiology researcher. What's happening? Why is there fighting? Sofia met her eyes. The Council executed Captain Miranda Chin 3 days ago. Earth responded. We're at war. Now move unless you want to be hostages. The reality of the situation crashed over the civilians. Some started crying. Others stood frozen in shock. Sofia had no time for emotional processing. Sergeant Liu, get them moving. Anyone who can't walk gets carried. We leave in 3 minutes with or without full cooperation. Her team began organizing the civilians into groups, assigning operators to guide each cluster. Sofia's earpiece crackled with updates from the Mercy. Commander, Council reinforcements just jumped into the system. We have maybe 10 minutes before this gets much more complicated. Understood. We're on our way back now. The extraction proceeded with controlled urgency. Sofia's team moved the civilians through the station's corridors, avoiding areas where Council security was gathering. They encountered one group of armed station guards, but Sofia's operators eliminated them with quick, precise fire before the aliens could raise an alarm. They reached the Mercy with 8 minutes to spare. The civilians were rushed aboard and secured in the cargo holds, which had been hastily converted into passenger compartments. Sofia was the last to board, taking a final look at the station interior before sealing the hatch. All personnel accounted for, she reported to her pilot. Get us out of here. The Mercy detached from the station and accelerated toward the Washington. Behind them, the battle continued to rage. Council reinforcements were arriving, but they found themselves facing an enemy that refused to fight predictably. Admiral Jackson watched as more Council ships entered the combat zone. His tactical officer counted 14 new arrivals, bringing the enemy total to 19 vessels against humanity's 20. "Admiral, we have the civilians," Commander Park reported. "The Mercy is requesting cover for its return to the fleet." "Fighter wings provide escort," Jackson ordered. "All ships prepare to withdraw. We've accomplished our primary objective." But Jackson had one more message to send. He opened a communication channel directly to the Council ships, broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Jackson Reeves of the United Earth Fleet. We came here today for one reason: to retrieve our people. We have done so. Your station remains intact because we chose to leave it that way. Your surviving ships remain operational because we chose mercy over massacre." He paused, letting his words register. "Captain Miranda Chen came to you in peace. You murdered her to demonstrate your power. Today we demonstrated ours. The difference is that we could have killed everyone on this station, but we didn't. Remember that when you consider your next move against humanity." Jackson closed the channel. "All ships, jump coordinates locked. Execute withdrawal on my mark." The human fleet vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving behind 8 destroyed Council warships, 11 damaged ones, and a station full of shocked aliens who had just learned that humanity was not prey to be hunted. Across Council space, similar operations unfolded. Human forces struck at military installations, supply depots, and diplomatic facilities. Each attack followed the same pattern: overwhelming initial assault, precision targeting, extraction of human personnel, and rapid withdrawal before Council forces could respond effectively. The Council had expected humanity to fight defensively, to huddle around Earth and Mars waiting for the inevitable assault. Instead, humans attacked across a dozen systems simultaneously, their forces appearing and disappearing with a speed that suggested impossible coordination. On the Council's central command station, High Elder Torkin received reports of the attacks with growing disbelief. In a single day, humanity had struck 27 targets, destroyed or damaged 43 Council warships, and rescued every human civilian trapped in Council territory. The losses were not crippling, but they were shocking. "How is this possible?" Elder Vrelnoth demanded. "They should not have the numbers or the capability for such widespread operations." A military analyst, a Minari named Kelthrix, brought up tactical displays showing the attack patterns. "They are using hit-and-run tactics, Elder. They strike with overwhelming local force, accomplish their objective, and withdraw before we can bring superior numbers to bear. It is clever. It is cowardly," Vrelnoth spat. "They refuse to stand and fight like honorable warriors." "With respect, Elder, they are fighting to win, not to satisfy our definitions of honor," Kelthrix replied carefully. "Our military doctrine assumes enemies will engage in prolonged battles where our numerical advantage becomes decisive. Humanity refuses to do so." High Elder Torkin studied the reports in silence. The execution of Captain Chen was supposed to frighten humanity into submission. Instead, it had unleashed something the Council had not anticipated. Not reckless aggression but calculated fury. Humans were fighting smart, using their inferior numbers with maximum efficiency. "Recall all military forces to defend core worlds," Torkin ordered. "Establish defensive perimeters around critical systems. If humanity wants to play these games, we will force them into a battle they cannot win." But even as the Council reorganized its forces, human attacks continued. Admiral Reeves had divided Earth's fleet into small, fast-moving groups that struck at targets across Council space. Each group operated independently, making it impossible for the Council to predict where the next attack would occur. Commander Torres led rescue operations that extracted human civilians from increasingly dangerous situations. Her reputation grew among both humans and Council species. Humans called her the Ghost because she appeared and disappeared without warning. Council species called her the Demon because she seemed to strike from nowhere, taking what she wanted and leaving destruction in her wake. Back on Earth, President Marcus Webb monitored the campaign from the Crisis Management Center. The operations were succeeding beyond initial projections. Human casualties remained low. Nearly every civilian had been safely evacuated. The Council's military was reacting defensively, constantly responding to human initiatives rather than executing their own strategy. But Marcus knew this was only the beginning. The Council had thousands of ships spread across hundreds of worlds. Humanity had hurt them, surprised them, but not defeated them. Eventually the Council would adapt. They would learn. And when they did, the real test would begin. For now, though, humanity had sent its message. Captain Miranda Chen's death would not go unanswered. Earth would not bow to threats. And any species that harmed humans would face consequences they could not ignore. The war had truly begun. And the galaxy watched in amazement as a young species that should have been easy prey proved itself to be a predator unlike any the Council had ever faced. In the darkness of space, human ships continued their deadly dance. They struck, withdrew, and struck again. Each attack carefully calculated. Each victory earned through innovation and determination. The Council had wanted to demonstrate power through fear. Humanity demonstrated power through action. The message was clear: we are here. We will not submit. And we will never forget.